Good morning, friends. We're going to sing together this morning, and I'm going to accompany the giving voice today. Dona Nobis is around, and so I'll play it through 3 times, and I'll sing, and that will give you some time to practice your round singing. Dona nobis pacem pacem, dona nobis Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
You're still on mute, Jim.
I thought I took care of that. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Jim Van Ostrand, serving on your board of directors. We are a congregation in the Free Faith tradition, a community of youth, adults, and children dedicated to pluralism in the spiritual search and ethics grounded in action. Serving participants today include Carol Coet, Amy Peterson-Derrick, Reverend Jack Gady, Kate Christopher and Phil Williams, Victoria Safford, and we are supported by Anna Garris and Aaron Scott. Music today is from Carol Coet, Craig Hansen, and the choir, directed by Thaxter Cuneo. We're hearing that some folks who log into our Zoom services using an iPad have had trouble viewing and hearing shared videos, such as chalice lightings and special music. If this is the case for you, look for a button in the upper left corner of your Zoom screen that says Switch to Screen Share. There's also a Zoom update for iPad. As always, let us know by email or in the chat if we can help. On the winter solstice and Christmas Eve, we hope you'll join us for special holiday services, featuring the voices of many members and friends, as well as your staff team. In the e-news this week, you'll find a link to orders of service with all the song lyrics and participant names, and also wonderful coloring pages based on our beloved 12 Days of Christmas placards. Today, after the service at 11:15, please join us for Cyber Social Hour. It's a fun way to meet others, see old friends, and share a little conversation in small facilitated groups. We'll put the Zoom link and easy instructions in the chat box. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
Come in. Come into this space which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears, anxieties, loves, and hopes. For here, you need not hide nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this space where we can heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this space where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this space. Together, we make it a holy space. Phil Williams and Kate Christopher will light the chalice.
First, I want to say that we miss all of you and can't wait till we can gather again in our own church. But for now, stay safe because I do believe our future together is bright. Among other things, Phil and I made hundreds and hundreds of phone calls during this campaign season. We were calling for specific local candidates, but we were also mostly calling for Faith in Minnesota, which is an organization, it's an offshoot of the Isaiah Project. And Isaiah is mostly aligned with UU principals. Mostly the candidates that we were calling for did not get elected. As small R revolutionaries who imagine a better world than currently exists, this was a tremendous disappointment.
However, we have been here before and we've learned to let the failures go. You just have to dust yourself off and make some more calls to legislators or to influencers or to voters. You have to volunteer. You have to work for social justice, distribute food, teach, do whatever you can. Because as the song says, when you stand up, you've already won.
Believe it or not, along with the anti-war movement, I spent the 60s organizing women's consciousness raising groups and advocating for women's access to birth control. Time flies. We light the chalice today to encourage everyone to stand up as they are able, pick up where others have left off, and carry the dreams of our imagined better world a little further.
When we stand up, we've already won. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Please join me in the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn is The Dark of Winter, number 55.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
Good morning. I want to share a story with you this morning. It's a true story about curiosity and wonder and imagination. And it's a story based on a telling by Gail Forsyth Vale about one of our Unitarian faith ancestors named Charles Darwin. I invite you this morning to take a breath. Just try to imagine yourself into the story a little bit, exploring, wondering, and imagining right along with Charles. From the time that he was a young child, Charles Darwin was an explorer. He loved to roam the fields and hills near his home in England. He was fascinated by the movement of small animals and insects and knew each wildflower by its name. He was curious about everything he saw and heard and touched, wondering at the lives of ants and butterflies, examining and collecting rocks, delighting in the grasses, trees, leaves, and flowers that provided homes for his very favorite creature, the beetle. Curiosity about the world and the place of humans in it was a gift given to Charles by both of his grandfathers. They were both Unitarians and believed that human beings did not yet know all of the answers to life's great questions. The clues, they thought, were to be found by observing the world around them, by asking questions, by listening, and by wondering and imagining. And so Charles practiced observing. His observing led to more questions, to more wondering and imagining about the whole wide world of things yet to be known. When Charles was 8, his father sent him away to school wanting him to learn Greek, Latin, and ancient history. But instead, Charles spent his time outdoors observing, wondering, and imagining. He would spend hours watching the workings of an anthill, then hours more as he considered the fascinating mysteries found in rock piles. At every opportunity, he took long walks outdoors, watching, listening, and collecting. He delighted in figuring out how creatures behaved and how the natural world worked. When Charles was 15, his father sent him to medical school to become a doctor, like his father and his grandfather before him. But Charles again found that he yearned to be back outside. And Charles wasn't alone. He found friends who also felt at home in nature and would teach him about all kinds of different plants. Charles began to draw these plants in great detail, labeling the parts, learning to tell one variety from another. 2 years later, Charles left medical school. It was so clear to him that he did not want to be a doctor. So instead, his father sent him to university to become a minister. In those days, it was not unusual to be both a minister and to study science at the same time. And Charles planned to find a small church in the countryside so he could spend most of his time observing animals, rocks, insects, and drying plants. But Charles soon discovered that while he loved learning all kinds of things, his life work was to be a naturalist. And so when he was 19, he was invited to spend 5 whole years traveling around the world on the HMS Beagle, serving as its naturalist. His job was to draw and make notes on plants and animals and rock formations everywhere the ship went. On that trip, Charles began to piece together clues to the great puzzle then called the mystery of mysteries, how all different life forms on Earth came to be. As he traveled, Charles filled notebooks with drawings and notes. He wondered and asked questions. He listened, he observed, he imagined and stayed open to the curiosities of the natural world as they presented themselves. Frogs and salamanders, armadillos, insects, and lots of fossils. When he returned to England 5 years later, he understood how plants and animals evolved from one form to another over the course of many, many thousands and millions of years. 22 years later, Charles published The Origin of Species. Scientists, teachers, and teachers took notice, and so did the press. The collector with the gift of wonder, a spirit of adventure, and openness to new ideas became the scientist whose theory responded to the mystery of mysteries. But the story doesn't end there. Just as Charles's work was inspired by the wondering and imagining of others, Charles's work then went on to inspire others to observe, to ask questions, to listen and wonder. And these new observations led to more questions and more wondering and more imagining about the whole wide world of things yet to be known.
Please join me in a spirit of revolutionary prayer and expansive meditation. Take a moment for deep breath, noticing your groundedness. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Find your center and rest for a moment in that balance. We've been here before. We know this combination of short, embracingly cold days, followed by chilly, clear nights. We know the rhythm. waking up to varied amounts of frost covering the lawns and sidewalks, a frozen crust that will slowly melt away from the rising of the sun, which grows closer now than in the summer, but for shorter windows of time. We are facing the cusp of winter solstice and a new revolution toward the returning light. And in this darkness, we honor the light within each human heart, the twinkling lights of the holiday season, the light in the eyes of a child. We notice and cherish the moonlight reflecting off of a frozen pond. We soak up the scarce sunlight, and we get lost in the star-filled sky. We praise the light that enables our scientists to research viruses and vaccines, the light that guides our surgeons in operating rooms, and the lights that reflect from our faces into our cameras as we communicate virtually to loved ones, both near and far. We celebrate the light that exposes injustice, the light that illuminates our past, and the light from our backyard fires, keeping us warm and safely connected with neighbors and friends. And we also celebrate the darkness and the possibility that lies within it. We celebrate the rest and the spaciousness that accompany the darkness, the opportunity to reflect, to unwind, and just to be still. In this moment, we acknowledge the benefit that comes from honoring the rhythm of this time, knowing that seeds grow in the darkness of the earth, just as babies grow in the darkness of the womb. In just a short moment, we will be silent together, honoring the light and the darkness, the sorrows and the joys that interweave together to form this web of life. Consider the people in your web, contemplating all the ways in which you are connected. Grab a hold of the thread that connects you to them. And in the silence of this moment, feel free to name them out loud and name your blessing for them. Knowing that all of us do better when all of us do better, we send these blessings around and between and among us. Stronger together, may we be blessed and may we be a blessing. May it be so and make it so. Amen. Dick Ottman will share a bit about today's offering recipient.
My wife Judy and I have been giving to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, for over 40 years. The UUSC started during World War II when a Unitarian minister and his wife risked their lives, went to Nazi-controlled Europe, and smuggled people out. I'm not asking you to risk your life. What I am asking you to do is write a check to WBUUC with UUSC in the memo line. Gifts of $125 or more are matched dollar for dollar by a foundation. Gifts to the UUSC are part of the Guest at Your Table program. You give to the UUSC because it follows the 7 principles of our faith, it empowers women, and it deals with basic human rights of people all around the world. My wife Judy and I were married 52 years ago, and she's in memory care, and that's why I'm doing the talking.
first reading is from Alan Lightman, a physicist recalling a summer night on the coast of Maine. It was a moonless night and quiet. The only sound I could hear was the soft churning of the engine of my boat. Far from the distracting lights of the mainland, the sky vibrated with stars. Taking a chance, I turned off my running lights and it got even darker. Then I turned off my engine. I lay down in the boat and looked up. A very dark night sky seen from the ocean is a mystical experience. After a few minutes, my world had dissolved into that star-littered sky. The boat disappeared, my body disappeared, and I found myself falling into infinity. I felt an overwhelming connection to the stars, as if I were part of them. And the vast expanse of time, extending from the far distant past, long before I was born, and then into the far distant future, long after I will die, seemed compressed to a dot. I felt connected not only to the stars, but to all of nature, and to the entire cosmos. I felt emerging with something far larger than myself, a grand and eternal unity, a hint of something absolute. After a time, I sat up and started the engine again. I had no idea how long I'd been lying there, looking up.
Our second reading is from Zia Haider, a poet from Bangladesh living in New York. There's an enormous comfort knowing we all live under this same sky. Whether in New York or Dhaka, we see the same sun and same moon. When it's night in New York, the sun shines in Dhaka, but that doesn't matter. Flowers that blossom here in spring are unknown in the meadows of distant Bengal. That too doesn't matter. There's no rainy season here. The peasant in Bengal welcomes the new crop with homemade sweets, while here, winter brings mountains of snow. The Hudson River freezes, automobiles can't move. Slowly, city workers will remove the snow. The old lady next door won't go to work, it's too cold. Maybe my old mother far away will also enter her kitchen late. Naked trees in Central Park and Ramna Park quiver with dreams of new life and love. Fog hangs on the horizon. Suddenly, New York, Broadway, Times Square look dimly like Dhaka, Buriganga, and Lakshmi Bazaar. We all live under this same sky.
The third reading is from Chet Ramo, an astrophysicist. I lie on my back, and the light of 10,000 stars enters my eyes. 10,000 subtle but distinct wavelets of energy enter my eyes at slightly different angles from out of the depths of space. And by some miracle, my eyes and brain sort it all out, put each star in its proper place, recognize the familiar patterns of the constellations, and open my soul to a universe whose length and breadth exceed my wildest imagining. Starlight falls upon me like a gentle rain. It blows across me like a furious wind. I am soaked and shaken. I have a friend who speaks of knowledge as an island in a sea of mystery. Let this then be the ground of my faith. All that we know now and forever, all scientific knowledge that we have of this world, or ever will have, is as an island in the sea. And still, the mystery surrounds us.
Beautiful star, beautiful star, bright morning star, beautiful star, my Lord star in the east. trials here below. See how they run. Watch the stars, see how they run. Oh, watch the stars, see how they run. The stars come down at the setting of the sun. Oh, watch the stars, see how they run. Although you see me going on, watch the stars, see how they run. We have our trials here below. The stars come down at the setting of the sun. Oh, watch the stars, see how they run. Oh, watch the stars, see how they run.
In half the world, it's dark right now, and scientists are sleeping, their lab coats hanging up on plastic hooks, the lenses of their tired microscopes peering down at nothing in the dark. At least I hope they're asleep. Rest is what I wish for them, rest for their brilliant minds, restoration for their dedicated bodies. In other places, they're waking up, or maybe they've been up for hours, even though it's Sunday. In libraries, laboratories, research centers, cubicles, they are on the case, as they have been all year, all of 2020, all around the world, people working day and night to make vaccines for us, to test vaccines for us, for everyone, for every single person on the planet. Scientists are up already, or maybe they were up all night, or maybe they just finally dropped exhausted into bed after working round the clock, round the world to make it safe, to make it work, to develop the special Antarctic cooling units some vaccines are gonna need, and all the little kits, syringes, patches, vials, while others elsewhere are trying to develop better, cheaper, more effective PPE for those who need it most. And others are working also not on drugs that can prevent disease, but medicines to heal us when we do get sick, to save thousands and thousands of lives, beloved lives of people with COVID-19. Others still are mapping in their minds production on a massive scale, transportation, distribution, packaging, timing. And for some of these people, I'm sure it's just a job. It's just what they do for a living. It's a really hard, important job. And others, maybe they have some sense that this work they're doing now is part of something extraordinary, meaningful, magnificent, like the building of the great cathedrals, the work of thousands of hands, only that took centuries. This work is something that would look from outer space, if you have that big perspective, like the work of honeybees, which to me seems so miraculous, the way they work together, constructing geometrically perfect hives filled with honey made from flowers and clover and ragweed. Or a colony of ants, that orchestrated complexity of common cause and mutual aid in their micro civilizations. The magnificent, decentralized but synchronized work of our scientists right now, it's like a V of geese or swans slicing through the winter sky, dedicated to moving in the same direction, trumpeting, their bodies and their whole being attuned to music larger than themselves, larger, older, more beautiful than any single one. When I think of these scientists all over our world right now, I think humans maybe could be almost as amazing as all the rest of nature, all the other brilliant animals. And I'm thinking this morning about gratitude, as the promise of a vaccine here seems every day more feasible. I think of gratitude, and I think again, as I have so many times this year, that the very least I can do to signal my respect and awe and thanks is wear a mask. It's not political for me, my layperson's devotion to science. It's religious. Unitarian Universalism comes from a long tradition of people who called the quest for truth a sacrament. We come from ancestors persecuted, martyred, tortured for fomenting revolutions, not loudly always, sometimes not even very publicly, but revolutions of imagination, invention, possibility, quietly, steadily, studiously, rigorously, overthrowing entire empires of calcified belief, people faithful not to faith alone, but evidence. We come from a tradition that holds wonder to be a revolutionary spiritual discipline and scientific method, sacred practice. I think of Darwin. For so many years, reluctant to publish what he'd written, what he knew, what he worked so hard to disprove once he'd glimpsed it, which is the essence of the scientific method, that commitment to shredding your own beloved theory when new and sounder truth comes clear. Darwin kept quiet for a long time. He put his manuscript in a drawer. He pondered in his heart because he knew the implications of what he dare imagine and then proven, and he wasn't quite ready. He just wasn't ready to topple 2,000 years of church doctrine, wasn't quite ready to blow up the whole world and start a revolution. And then he did because he couldn't not. Maria Popova is a writer and a curator. She's a biographer of scientists and artists, particularly women scientists and artists, many of whom were early Unitarians. She writes, "At watershed moments of upheaval and transformation, we anticipate with terror the absence of the familiar parts of life and of ourselves that are being washed away in the current of change. But we fail to envision the unfamiliar gladness and gratifications the new tide would bring, the unfathomed presences, for our imaginations are always bounded by our experience. The unknown awakens in us a reptilian dread that plays out with the same ferocity on scales personal, societal, civilizational, whether triggered by a new life chapter or a new political regime or a new world order. It is the same dread," she says, "to which the Inquisition gave shape and sinew in punishing all who dared to consider the universe might be vaster and more mysterious than the constellations of mythology had preached for millennia. To be a revolutionary," she says, "is to be in possession of an imagination capable of leaping across the frontier of the familiar to envision a new order in which what is gained eclipses the ill-serving comforts of what's lost." Some years ago, I was here at church at night around this time of year. It was late November. And there had been that night a congregational meeting to vote on some big decision. And I actually think it was two big things. I could look this up. I think it was the decision to build the sanctuary or to start fundraising or hire an architect, some big step. And also that same night, a vote formally to oppose President Bush's war against Iraq, which was a rare kind of vote here. Both votes passed beautifully, and both were major milestones, upheaval in a good way, little local revolutions of imagination. and people lingered afterward to talk about it, and then they left. And I was just leaving when someone called, one of you called, and said, go outside right now to the parking lot, face north, look up, just do it. Turn the lights out when you go. Strange counsel, but from a trusted person. So I did that. And that night, right here, for the first time in my life, I saw the Northern Lights. I had only barely even heard of the Northern Lights before moving here. I'm pretty sure I didn't think they were real, but maybe some kind of Scandinavian legend. But it was real. I looked up and I almost fell down in amazement. And I lay down in the driveway. It was a dirt gravel driveway then, no lights out there. I briefly hoped nobody would pull in and run me over. And then I fell into the sky. As Alan Lightman said in Jack's reading, I fell into infinity. My body disappeared. I felt an overwhelming connection to the stars as if I were part of them. The vast expanse of time compressed to a dot. I felt emerging with the cosmos, a grand eternal unity, a hint of something absolute. I have no idea how long I lay there looking up. The next day, people sent emails joking around that it must have been an omen. The gods and goddesses were pleased with our excellent votes on the building project and the war. God at last is smiling down a benediction on the Unitarian Church. And of course, that was a joke. And of course, I spent many hours looking up aurora borealis and solar winds, magnetic fields, protons and electrons. It was still a mystical experience, the more I learned, but not a superstitious one. And I wondered then, and always have, how strange it is that people living side by side in a country or a town on a planet can believe such different things about the same thing. Because there are surely people all around who do believe that God sends signs directly, sends rain and northern lights to delight us, and thunderbolts and plagues to punish us, or just to prove God's terrifying power. What makes a person one way, not another, about how the world is wired? And you'd think this question would have been settled centuries ago as our hive mind advanced, our ant colony of learning expanded. But it wasn't settled, and it's still not. It flares up in certain moments like the one we're in right now, disturbingly. 42% of people in our country, says Alan Lightman, believe in the constancy of species, that humans were created in their present form in the first days of the planet. It's almost half our people. How can it be? It's about education and environment, I know. I think it's also maybe about fear in us, ancient fear of mystery. Science loves certainty and facts far less than it loves questions. Chet Ramos says that knowledge is an island in a sea of mystery. All that we know now and forever, all scientific knowledge we have of this world or ever will, is as an island in the sea, he says, and still the mystery surrounds us. In May, already filled with gratitude and awe, I wrote a prayer. It was just after I'd read that lab technicians and public health workers in some states were receiving death threats as they tracked the spreading virus and begged us to wear masks. For the global community of scientists. In Sunday school, we learned it all was made in 7 days, light from luminous darkness, heaven and earth, the animals, and not so long ago, they said, miracle on miracle. But then on Monday morning, Mrs. Warner took our whole first grade to the city on a school bus, where in the hall of dinosaurs, pterodactyl flying, T-Rex, floor to ceiling, I heard a different gospel. And looking up, so small, I was converted there in that marble cathedral on Central Park West. In second grade, they took us to the Hayden Planetarium, darkness, infinite, eternal, and looking up, I made my first communion, drinking mystery, and wonder. Look up, look out, look all around, look deep into the data, particle, planet, atoms, and stars. This is a practice of prayer, seeking and beseeching. The catechism of questions. Inside the covers of my Bible, I taped the periodic table beside the pastel painting of Moses with his tablets on Mount Sinai. A place for everything, and everything in place, while the great earth spun me round. In Sunday school, I learned the language of lament and praise, still useful every day. I learned we are a little lower than the angels. I learned we are not God. And from Mrs. Warner, Mrs. Hogan, Mr. Dutton, Mrs. Milrad, the saints of George Washington School, in biology, chemistry, geology, geometry, I received the sacraments of science, the holy, unwavering commandments of experiment and proof. A novice, I learned to place my faith in questions, the evidence of things unseen. This religion saves me still. And maybe it's the same for you. In my case, public education anchored in good science never shook my faith in the magic of the world, but just the opposite. Science never eclipsed my capacity for humility and wonder, just the opposite. So there's something moving to me, tender, in the testimony of astronomers staring at the stars without their telescopes, lying on their backs, as we all have, on the grass, in the driveway, in the snow, in the bottom of a little boat at night, adrift in the ocean, or on a northern lake, where sometimes it's so dark and it can be so still that stars are all around you in the sky, but also in the water, and you lose yourself like that. You fall into infinity. There are people who can fill entire libraries with calculations and equations to parse the stars, their density and age, their composition and dimensions. But it is moving to me, and maybe equally impressive, when scientists speak in words as well as numbers, in poetry as well as formulae, about what happens in the mind, in the soul, when we look up. Science is a language anyone can learn to speak. It's not a matter of belief or destiny, but practice. An astronomer is not a shaman, just a person who maybe as a little kid fell head over heels one night, head over heels in love one night, into the glimmering black bowl of sky, and they were never quite able to pull themselves out after that, but just paddle deeper and deeper into mysticism mixed with understanding. It's moving to me to realize everybody has probably done this, or if they're too little yet to go outside at night alone, they're gonna someday. Every human mind has traveled light years in imagination. There's an enormous comfort, says the poet Zia Haider, an enormous comfort in knowing we all live under this same sky. Whether in New York or Dhaka, we see the same sun and same moon. When it's night in New York, the sun shines in Dhaka, but that doesn't matter. There's enormous comfort knowing we all live under this same sky. Looking up, looking in, gazing into telescopes and microscopes, some brilliant ones among us dare to answer the silence of the stars with music and art and medicine and vaccines and cathedrals and bridges and Zoom technology to hold us together, even when we're not. Imagination is always revolutionary. You have to let go of what is in order to welcome what could possibly potentially come. And it's a fearsome upending. People will not always thank you for it. Whether your claim is that the flat, reliable land is actually a spinning ball hurtling through space and time, or whether your claim is wilder still, that love is contagious and greater than fear, that hope is a muscle that builds when we flex it, that light will return in the dead of winter if we call it back with candles and stories and songs. Imagine On a winter night, not long from now, you're going to have a flash of genius. You put down your phone, switch off the TV and the looping playlist of holiday anxiety, pandemic despair, and open a window, or maybe step outside. Icy cold, very dark. And looking up, you'll greet your old friend, Orion. You'll take his hand and together recalculate what's saving your life now. What do you love? What brings you joy? What makes you cry? What should you do? Who needs your help? And isn't it beautiful, this unfolding darkness in winter in the north when we're all waiting all together for the light? Out of nowhere, answers will come to you like comets, not many, but enough to give you light to go on, no matter what's ahead. In this darkening time, the season of busyness and also of visible breath, the season of jangling noise and also startling silences, the season of the longest night and also of the light's return, this moment of national trauma and global trouble, may we keep open to wonder and to miracles of reason, opening the windows of the mind, opening the spirit's door to all the truth and light and hope that wait for us out there. May we keep open to each other, heart to heart, and to transformations, revolutions that we can't even yet imagine. Amen. The hymn is People Look East, 226 in the gray hymnal.
People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able. Trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today. Love, the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, though earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today. Love, the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today. Love, the star is on the way.
Please join me in the closing words. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our will and love of truth forever guide us.
Everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. Watch for the e-news on Monday and Thursday for news about gatherings, programs, and holiday services. Be sure to download or print the beautiful packet of coloring pages and orders of service for Christmas Eve and next Sunday. At 11:15 today, join us for Cyber Social Hour. It's actually half an hour of easy conversation in small groups with friends, old and new. We're sending love to you today from Maple Street and all our locations. Farewell, stay well, friends, from all of us. Amen.
Noël, nouvelle, Noël, chantons ici. Les beautés chanteront dans un dur merci. Chantons Noël, le roi nouvelle. Noël, nouvelle, Noël, chantons ici. Sing we now of Christmas, Noel, sing we here. Hear our grateful praises to the babe so dear. Sing we Noel, the child is born Noel. Sing we now of Christmas, sing we now Noel. Angels call to shepherds, leave your flocks at rest. Journey forth to Bethlehem, find the child so blessed. Sing we Noel, the child is born Noel. Sing we now of Christmas, sing we now Noel. In the town they found him, Joseph and Mary mild, seated by the manger, watching the holy child. Sing we Noel, the child is born Noel. Sing we now of Christmas, sing we now Noel. From the eastern country came the kings of far, bearing gifts to Bethlehem, guided by a star. Sing we Noel, the child is born Noel. Sing we now of Christmas, sing we now Noel. Gold and myrrh they took, their gifts of greatest price. There was ne'er a stable so like paradise. Sing